Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Karen Doyle, Operations Director of CTAM Europe. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar with, once again, this fabulous duo, Rua Aguete, Head of Media and Entertainment at Omdia, and Jonathon Broughton, Research Director at PlumResearch. I'm sure you'll know them from our webinars, but also from industry events around the globe. One of the latest was at IBC and a couple in Munich and San Sebastian, and they will be discussing these today. We're scheduled for 30 minutes, which includes time for questions, so please post your questions by using the Q&A button. As always, the recording of the presentation will be posted on the members-only section of ctameurope.com, and if you're not a current member, please email info@ctameurope.com for more details. Members have access to an industry webinar a month, webinars and podcasts from our colleagues across the pond at CTAM US, and also you're invited to apply for the week-long executive management program at INSEAD. I'll follow up with more details about the program in the next couple of days. Maria and Jonathon have access to the registration list and will follow up or may follow up with their own news separately. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll leave you to Maria and Jonathon. Thank you. Enjoy.
Thank you very much, Karen, and thank you all the friends from CTAM Europe. We were with you recently and we took the opportunity to come back because, as Karen said, we have been in many events recently. We have been to IBC, then with Jonathon I went to Munich to a telco event, and then I was in San Sebastian for an advertising event.
You had a different costume for every event.
Correct. So yes, we're not wearing the German outfits in Munich.
No, you're looking pretty glam today. I must apologize. I'm wearing a fleece and, in fact, out of shot, a blanket because I've got a bit of a cold. So please bear with me.
So without further ado, let me start with some of the media and entertainment highlights I saw at IBC. So I'm going to start with some of the key takeaways as you saw at the event, and then Jonathon has some slides for you with what he believes are his takeaways. So number one for me has been advertising. Advertising is a topic being discussed in every single event I have been the last month. IBC, Munich, TV Rising, San Sebastian, since lots of players are now into this advertising industry that is the fastest growing segment in media and entertainment. Then bundling and partnerships are really critical. So even at IBC, lots of streamers, including Netflix and others, went to the event to make sure they can get new partnerships in the telco pay TV world. So yes, traditional pay TV is not dead, and partnerships are more important than ever for both, for the streamers and for the telcos. Third big takeaway is the connected TV world. Everyone is talking about the connected TVs. There are lots of new TV OS launching in this space. Why is that? We will have a look. Media is becoming more shoppable. Retail media is another hot topic. So it's not just having adverts, it's being able to buy through those adverts. And we are saying as well that shops are becoming more media focused. Lots of partnerships with companies like Tesco, Boots, retailers with media companies at the moment. And finally, AI is still a super hot topic at IBC and many events. And I know Jonathon hosted a panel at IBC. He will discuss more about that. So what I'm going to show you today, I'm going to focus on what is the money in media and entertainment, the importance of advertising and bundling, and what consumers want. What do they watch, in which devices, and this famous tvOS battlefield, where are we now at the moment? And finally, some hot topics discussed at IBC were about Ultra HD, 4K, and AI in media. So where is the money? So there are lots of reasons to be happy. I know there are reasons to be sad as well. I know there is a lot of mergers, consolidations, and as a result, many people losing their jobs, which is not nice. But overall, the media and entertainment industry is doing quite well. It's doing quite well, and only traditional TV, what we call traditional pay TV operators and linear TV advertising, only that segment is declining, minus 13 billion. Where everywhere else, we see growth. Even in the streaming world, online video, including pay and free, is growing in the next year, 2025, $43 billion. So as you can see, more than the decline we see in traditional TV. That means the industry is quite healthy. Games, in 1 year, we will see a growth global of 12 billion, and music and cinema doing quite well. That's why lots of smiles, in particularly the biggest smile in the online video streaming world. So what we're going to have at the end of 2025, $1.1 trillion in revenues, and as I said before, the biggest growth coming from online video that will reach next year $435 billion in revenues. And 62% of that will come from advertising. Traditional TV, 314 billion, 40% coming from advertising. And in the world of games, 23% of revenues also from advertising. Advertisers are working now very close across these three bubbles: video, TV, games. So as we can see here, the fastest growing segment, as we keep saying, is advertising with 371 billion in 2029. And online subscription revenues, all the Netflixes of the world, will overtake the revenues of that blue line that is pay TV. So in 2029, all the streaming services in the world will get more revenues than pay TV. I put it here for clarity: online video subscription, pay TV subscription, globally, online overtaking pay TV. But again, pay TV is not dead. It's declining, it's not growing, but it's not dead. Just that online is growing really fast. Another frequently asked question by everyone has always been, you say, Maria, that 371 billion is revenues from advertising, online video advertising. This includes YouTube, social video, TikTok, broadcasters, AVOD, FAST, everything video advertising. What will happen if we remove from here the social video? What if we keep only premium? Remove all the YouTubes, remove all the TikToks. What do we have then? This is what we will have. 223, that light blue, is all the social video revenues, while the green is the non-social video. So the non-social video is still below the subscription online video revenues. So very clearly you can see how important globally social video is. And who are the big players? Globally is TikTok, followed by Meta, and followed by YouTube. Again, three huge numbers, three big players. TikTok is really big because China is included in these numbers, and China represents a big part of all the global TikTok revenues. Next, let's go slow and fast. Yes, fast is still a hot topic, the free advertising streaming services. But once again, this is data updated 2 weeks ago. Biggest revenues will come from the US, 9.4 billion in 2029, and the whole Europe will reach 1 billion. So again, yes, there's an opportunity in fast, 12 billion in 2029, but let's be clear in which countries we see growth. At the moment, after the US, is Europe, is Latin America, and some countries in Asia Pacific. So 2024, this year, the leaders after the US will be the United Kingdom, Canada, Brazil, and Australia. If we put the forecast for 2029, we will see that it will be again United Kingdom, the most important country after the US, followed by Brazil, and then Japan and Canada. So again, speaking English countries being very important in fast, Brazil and Mexico, Latin America, really important. And then we have in Europe, Germany, France, Italy, and Spain. There are too many channels, as we say here, for people to enjoy or for people to ignore. Because let's face it, if there are 1,700 channels in the US, many of these channels, Jonathon has data on how many channels people really watch. Most of these 1,000 channels, nobody will watch them. So discoverability, how to be able to find these channels is critical. Even in the UK, 610 fast channels. So where the channels are in your main screen will be critical for survival. Power of bundling. I told you that IBC, I saw many meetings between streamers and telcos because partnerships bundlings are critical. In 2016, when we look at all the pay subscriptions, streaming and pay, most people have a pay TV only subscription. Few were those that they had only an SVOD. Things have changed. Most people now complement pay TV with a SVOD. And many people have also only an SVOD. So the world has changed and SVOD became part of everyone's subscription package. Who are the players that have more friends? Netflix, Disney, HBO, Prime Video. You can see here in the map, there are still some regions where they don't have that many friends. Africa and Asia Pacific is still a lot of work to do there. But in North America, Latin America, Eastern Europe, Middle East, lots of partnerships. In fact, we are tracking now at Omdia more than 2,000 partnerships between telcos and SVOD players who have very good detailed data on these 2,000 partnerships happening around the globe. And we believe 25% of subscriptions in 2029 will come through these partnerships. So streamers versus telcos. And we have data on how many will be from Netflix, HBO, Amazon, and if it's the Comcast, Sky, we have very good analysis on these partnerships. In some regions like Middle East, 2029, 45% of subscriptions from streamers will come through these partnerships. Really, really critical, really critical. Almost half of every subscription a streamer gets is through a partnership with a telco. Lots of food for thought here. The next block is, but what do consumers watch and where, how long? This is for these countries, what are the top 10? Netflix almost always in the top 5. YouTube always, always, always number 1. We have been saying this for years and years and years, and people are still surprised when someone says, oh, people love YouTube. Really? This story has been told so many times that I will be surprised if I hear again people surprised by YouTube being the number 1. Number 2 differs country by country. In the US, it's Instagram. In UK, Germany, and Spain, public service broadcasters, really strong. Despite all the criticisms to public service broadcasters, if they're dinosaurs, if they're slow to adapt, credit to them because they are, especially in the UK, in the top most watched video services in the country, BBC, Channel 4, ahead of Netflix as well. Other important things, TikTok, how important comes in the top 10. And in the US, the fast channels, Tubi and Roku, coming on the top 10. And then looking at Brazil, everyone is asking us about Brazil because it's one of the top countries for fast. And also you can see there Samsung TV Plus in there and in South Korea, how important they are. I really like the fact that they're popular in South Korea because not only they produce the TVs there, but it is also one of the most favorite video services. So kind of as a joke, or maybe it's not a joke, imagine if Samsung starts producing their own Korean TV series, a market they know that well. Food for thought. Where do they watch these services? It depends. It's not always in the same country. So in the UK and Germany, it's in the smart TVs. But as you can see, it's not always the case that people watch the content always in the smart TVs. It can be in the smartphones. It can be in other devices. And set-top boxes, the role of set-top box is not dead neither, and it still plays a critical role when watching content. This slide shocked many people at IBC because, or even in the event I was in advertising event in San Sebastian, because people claim that TikTok, Instagram is only for 15-year-olds. My 3-year-old son, my 15-year-old daughter. As you can see in this consumer survey that Omdia does with Ipsos, TikTok, even people between 55 and 64, they are watching TikTok. They are consumers. Yes, mostly is the biggest segment is 25 to 34, but every age group is involved with TikTok. And with YouTube, look at that. 69% of people between 55 to 64 said they're using YouTube. And look as well, Instagram Reels And of course, I'm comparing there 3 social video services with a pay one, Netflix, where the average groups are more or less more similar. But again, the highlight from this slide is Instagram, TikTok, YouTube is not only for 25-year-olds. What about devices? Where do people watch YouTube versus Netflix? Someone told me last week everyone watches YouTube on the smartphone. Nobody watches YouTube on the smart TV. Wrong, although it is true that 57% of people watch it on a smartphone and most people watch Netflix on the smart TV. Many people also watch YouTube on the smart TV, in fact 32%, and 7% through a set-top box, and 5% through a games console, and 22% through YouTube, so through a tablet. Netflix, yes, most people watch it through a smart TV, but many people also watch it on a smartphone or on a tablet or through a set-top box. So nothing is as people may think, and this data is for the US, but we have this data country by country, brand by brand. What if we compare it with Amazon Prime Video or a FAST service? FAST services seems to be more all over the place. Like, for example, Tubi in the US, people watch it 35% on a smart TV, 24% on the smartphones. So it seems like the FAST services are being watched more all over the place. What about the myth that if you are under 24, you will never watch your content on a smart TV? False. As you can see there in the first chart in green, people that are under 24 also love watching content, even YouTube content, on the big smart TV. So it is not true that they only watch it on the smart TVs, on the smartphones. As you get older, the percentage of people watching content on the smart TV increases, but it is also significant in the age group 18-24. So I have not a lot of time to finish, so let me just give you one headline. Why there are so many hardware companies involved in this space? Which of these companies are making most money from advertising? Is in fact Roku. Roku will make 5 billion in advertising revenues in 2029, followed by Samsung, who will make 3. And just 1 minute, because I spoke too much. We also presented at IBC, the Ultra HD World Association, UWA, discussing the importance of 4K, because although there is a lot of hardware, a lot of TV sets, there is still a lot of lack of content in 4K. If you want, this is again a summary of the key takeaways. If you want a copy of this deck, I would be happy to send you the email. But I think Jonathon is dying to show you now his highlights. Thank you very much.
I have a question, Maria. I was looking at our webinar chat and nothing's come up, but I have a question for you. Your partnership data, that's super interesting. Am I right in assuming that that indicates the kind of current percentages of partnerships versus subscriptions? So if you looked at it as a growth rate, it's even higher.
So I have 2 slides. One is the number of partnerships between streamers and telcos, and the other one is how many subscribers they get through the partnerships. So in Middle East, 50% of all the subscribers streamers get are through a partnership with a telco.
Right. Are they new subscribers, or is that
of the total number of subscribers
number?
They have 50%
right.
Through a
so in terms of new subscribers, it's going to be way higher. That's my question.
Yes, of all the net additions, 50%
exactly.
will come through a partnership with a telco. In the Middle East, globally, it will be 25%. But that's why it's important, because it will reduce churn. So for streamers, it will be good. And for telcos, it's good as well, because people will not cancel the service. They will offer connectivity, bundling, everything in one place. But since I have been over speaking, if you want to go straight to your deck.
There's a question that's just come up. Let's do that first, and then I'll jump into my slides. So what's your view on the increase in demand for local regional content, and how does it affect global streamers? Now, I have some opinions on that.
Exactly. So why don't you go to your deck, please, and then.
Okay. So let me quickly jump into that. Yeah, and I think it's actually, for the information that Maria's just highlighted, is exactly why that's massively on the up and up. Maria's data shows very clearly that there is a strong demand for streaming services to partner at a local level, especially in the territories which they're now sort of seeing as growth markets. So if you think about what's been unexploited so far, there's tremendous competition from telco and local pay TV companies, even cable channels still doing really, really well. What all of this means is that when sort of global services, and I have some great data on this, are trying to up their penetration in the sort of smaller, more fragmented markets, what they're finding is that the kind of local content isn't quite doing as well as it did elsewhere. And in fact, sort of more local as I guess we all think local is, tends to be what does very well there. So stuff like Polish comedies is something that is needed to tackle the Polish market in a way that wasn't quite true when looking at say Netflix entering France or Germany or the UK. But great question and super interesting sort of developments in that space. Maria, do you want to take that other question, or shall I push on?
Use your 9 minutes, Jonathan, and people can email me with questions. Please.
All right, we'll come back to the questions in a little bit, but thank you for raising them. Let me share my screen. Hopefully you can see just my slides and not the chat and stuff that I have up. So thanks very much. I've got a very similar presentation to Maria. I'm going to run through some things about what was talked about at IBC and the sort of events around it. I've written AI 4 times because it was a huge focus. I've written metaverse because it wasn't discussed. There were some nice themes about sustainability, and I got some data to show you on fast devices and tiers. So I'm going to run through a few slides, and then I'm going to join a conversation with Maria about a couple of the other things. So starting off with fast, Maria again had some really nice stuff to say here. Her point was around the unavailable, or the kind of the large landscape. And again, this is a slide in fact developed in partnership with Omdia, looking at how that looks on a viewing basis. So this data is for Pluto TV, and in fact echoes very closely the point around discoverability. So here, what this is indicating is that of the sort of top 100 channels that you can see on Pluto, which is the vast majority of all viewing going on there, only just 5 of those are responsible for around 25% of all viewing, of which around 3 of them are owned by Pluto themselves. So if you think about fast as a discoverability play in a way that makes value out of a lot of library content, getting to the top of that, EPG is absolutely critical in ensuring some viewing. And again, it's talked a lot about sort of a magical tool for monetizing library content. It has massive niches, and it tends to be TV content not performing as well as it does on streaming services, and instead sort of classic movies doing very, very well and dominating quite a lot of that viewership. Now, partially this is skewed because of what's actually occupying those top slots, so a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. But we do see a sort of strong skew in the terms of the content that's actually being consumed on fast channels, which doesn't extend to the VOD services of those fast channels, where we look at the VOD services attached to fast channels, i.e. when you push through the layer of EPG style fast programming and into the free AVOD services, which are normally attached with them, you see something a little bit more like this. This is from Tubi TV, and you see a vast amount of series being consumed rather than TV. So a reversal of that. Fast and VOD behave in a very different way, even when they're drawing from roughly the same library sources. Let's dwell a little bit on devices. Again, huge topic at IBC, massive resurgence in a lot of the kind of very sophisticated agnostic OS deployments that we were seeing. Things like Whale TV looking increasingly shiny and sort of top end. Xperi with their sort of agnostic aggregation tools, again something really, really cool. And how does that look in terms of our data? So this is from streaming sources, and we do see actually as we see CTV devices starting to age a little bit, and we see that the grand replacement cycles of 7 years ago being reduced a little bit. We do see sort of other devices slightly squashing some of the TV sets at the top end. Now, this doesn't mean that people aren't watching on TV sets. It actually more indicates that there are a range of devices which we log as computer, but they could be anything using a non-TV OS, actually starting to replace a little bit of the viewing going on there. If we dive into mobile, again, Maria's point was people don't always watch things on TVs. We see a huge amount of viewing going on in this space, and we're actually starting to pick up some viewing in connected cars as well. Here we've logged the Teslas, which is tiny in the grand scheme of things, but it's, if you model it on a per user basis of a Tesla, or a per car basis, I should probably say, it's getting up to around 30 minutes a week of TV streaming going on in that space. So interesting, not going to make anyone rich just yet, but certainly a development if anybody is considering in-car entertainment. And again, a more detailed view of that, and you can see a little bit about where those devices are picking up from. One of the things we're pushing into at Plum is a really granular view of what devices are still connected, so we can see down to the model level. And one of the most surprising discoveries we have is there are a vast amount of ancient devices which are still being used day in, day out for viewing. Things like Blu-ray players, PS3s and PS4s still make up a huge chunk of plugged in devices. So maintain your apps on those devices, despite the distractions of 2024's technology. There's a lot of 2014 technology still out there. There's a lot of talk again about unscripted at the moment. One of the things we've been looking at is a fall in the kinds of content which is being commissioned due to a change in distribution. Streaming is a very, very poor home for unscripted content. Most of it is scripted, and one of the things we have noticed is a lot of that again is to do with not just how it's distributed, but the device that it is distributed on. So where distribution skews to more mobile devices, more casual devices, we see unscripted die off, and it's only sort of long form on TV sets where we see that pick up again. Another topic was talking around advertising and tiers which are coming out. Again, streaming services pushing into this space, but what effect does it have on what actually needs to be served there? What does it mean for ad serving? What does it mean for sort of app development and the competitive landscape around tiers? We see a massively higher engagement around those tiers that do not have advertising. So eventually more viewing happens on services where ads are not present. What roughly is happening there is the ad strategy from the streaming services is actually playing off pretty well. And more casual viewers who are less likely to take a full fat subscription just because they consume less content seem to be tempted onto those lower cost advertising based plans. We don't see a huge amount of difference in what that means in terms of what people are actually consuming. In general, it's about the same, so no huge sweeping changes in the overall genres. Although we do see a little bit around more animation and sci-fi consumption more animation consumption on those taking ads, and more sort of sci-fi and fancy on those who are actually paying for the full fat subscriptions. One kind of slightly amusing data point we also pulled out when doing some of our tier analysis for IBC was that if a service offers an extra membership, so an account which gives somebody an additional device, an additional account for themselves to use on top of the family account, it usually correlates with some really bad taste in TV. Here I've indicated that just by a sort of I think it's a 45% increase in the consumption of unscripted content. But these are things like people watching shows like Selling Sunset. They're not allowed to watch it on the main device in the main screen. In fact, instead they're given their own account and sent to their room to watch it by themselves. AI. I'm going to whiz through these slides because I think the people on this call are pretty much clued up on AI. But one of the couple of things I'd like to mention is there's a really good growing understanding on the content side of the business that this is what we're talking about. It is probabilistic determination, and it is diffusion models. People are understanding that it's this and it's not sci-fi. So a really good understanding of the limitations of this. And therefore, when we're looking into develop things, regardless of the segment of the industry that we're talking about, people are talking very deeply about different training models and different mechanisms to actually create solutions that are applicable for what they needed to do, solutions applicable to the solutions that are needed, I guess. Quick bit of audience interaction. Maria, you can see the chat and I can't. Question to the audience: can you name these two symbols I have presented in front of you? A bonus point if you can guess at why I've put them there. You've got 20 seconds to write your answer. Maria, can you see any answers coming in? You're on mute.
There are no answers, and we're also.
Come on, chat, get on it. Everyone knows the bottom one. What's the top one?
So nobody seems to know the answer. So
wakey, chat. Okay, fine. I'll put you out of your misery.
Now out of time, but yeah.
No prizes. There was an iPad to everyone answered first, but you all missed it. The bottom one is, of course, OpenAI. Everybody knows this, and the top one is Tiny Llama. And the reason I have chat is disabled. That's why no one got an iPad. Sorry, chat. So nobody gets an iPad. But the reason I talked about that is this. This is the way that the market tends to be heading per a lot of conversations at IBC, even backed by huge corporations like, the corporation, NVIDIA, who is firmly enabling this with some of their blueprint technology. What it is this. Giant LLMs are out, despite the fact we seem to be using them every day. But for industrial applications, giant LLMs are out, and more targeted, smaller apps, I guess, are in. And it's simply for two reasons. One, if you design your model more specifically, you can get the same accuracy out of a smaller device. And if you use a very, very large data set, you are paying more for the answers. So if you ask 1,000 questions to the latest ChatGPT and 1,000 questions to Tiny Llama, the answers are about the same, but it costs somebody $300 for OpenAI, and it costs somebody 35 cents for Tiny Llama, which in fact you can run in your browser. So thanks for listening. Maria, I'm going to leave it on this slide in case we want to kick off on any questions.
Unfortunately, I realized we had so many things to say and only 30 minutes that we are running out of time. But Karen, I will be happy if people want to forward emails on questions. I know someone asked me about, I mentioned telco and streamers. Do we have more partnerships? Of course, with hardware companies, with retailers. I mean, the world of partnerships and bundling is endless. I focus here on telco streamers that we saw at IBC, but there are more types of partnerships bundling. And again, because we ran out of time today, I hope you found this useful. Both me and Jonathon will be happy to send you the decks, and email us your questions. You have our contact details. You can find us in social media, LinkedIn, and via normal email. And thank you very much. I don't know if Karen wants to say a few words, but I hope you enjoyed it.
I want to thank you both for doing a fabulous webinar yet again, especially you, Maria, because I know you've got to be at the airport within minutes now. So thank you both. As Maria said, if there's any questions, you can email either of them. I will send some information on the INSEAD program tomorrow, and I'll CC Maria and Jonathon so you have their email addresses for any questions. And as Maria says, she will send you some slides as well if you need to. So thank you, everybody, and much appreciated for putting all the fabulous slides together for us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and I will see you all soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.